with the logo Born for Music, FiiO brought us the flagship EM they have in 2024. This is the FiiO FH19. It is an EM, a flagship EM priced at $599, which is not that much for a flagship. It comes with 2 dynamic drivers and 4 balanced armatures playing for each ear. So 6 drivers in total playing for each ear. They also have one of the best transport cases out there, because this transport case not only is very thick and made of leather, also feels really sturdy, it also has a super soft padding on the inside which will protect the EM from scratches during transportation. Inside of the package you will find the EMs, the cable with removable connectors, and also 22 pairs of ear tips. FiiO really wanted to make sure that you'll get a good comfort, so they have FiiO proprietary tips, spin fit tips. Also, the ones that I use the most have been DD Hi-Fi tips. It's quite ironic when you have so many options included in the package, but here is the thing. I don't use the DD Hi-Fi tips because I don't like the default tips. Quite on the contrary, the FiiO tips are excellent. The one problem that I have is that I don't want to expose my ears to too many types of silicones. So instead of using the default tips, I've used the DD Hi-Fi ST35, which I recommend doing. They're a good pair of tips. They will likely give you more consistency with your EMs. And I'm not saying that because the default tips are not consistent, but because when I test so many EMs, I try to have a single pair of ear tips that I have. Of course, it's not a single physical pair. All of them are DD Hi-Fi ST35. FiiO FH19 is a semi-open back EM, so we have a large opening at the back. The shell is made of titanium in this silvery ring and also from aluminum in the main shell. They have MMCX connectors for the EMs. They can turn freely inside of their sockets, but this is a special stainless steel longer MMCX connector, which should provide better reliability than the traditional style. At the comfort level, this is one of the more comfortable EMs out there. It is quite light, so the EM shell itself is light. It is very ergonomic. The shape tends to make contact with the ear, but you don't really feel it. There is no driver flex despite having 2 dynamic drivers in each EM. There is no void. Comfort is superb. The one thing that FiiO did with the FH19 is that they have 2 dynamic drivers firing at each other. So they are placed like this, parallel to each other, and they move in tandem. Basically, the movement of the 2 drivers looks like a single, much larger driver. They take just half the power to be driven, which means that FH19 is very easy to drive. The sound is super loud, super easily, and also has a lower distortion. This idea of having 2 drivers in a push-pull configuration is also popular with speakers, and it has proved itself to be highly efficient. The cable is a high-quality pure silver cable. As you can see, it has a good braiding. Also, the connector is detachable. You just have to unscrew the jacket, then remove the detector by pulling. Here is how the connector looks like. There is a guide which tells you how to insert the connector. You have to respect it, otherwise it will not be inserted. I'm using the 4.4mm balanced connector because most of the sources that I've used the FH19 with have been balanced. I've also used the IBESO D16 and the IBESO PB5 quite a lot as the sources for driving those, just because that is my current flagship setup for my desktop, so I use it for most testing. FiiO has also customized the balanced armatures for the mid-range. They introduced ventilation for them, so a balanced armature with ventilation, quite cool. FiiO is a company that really likes to invest in developing new driver tech. They also have a patented technology which is the S-Turbo. It takes the sound from the dynamic driver assembly and pushes it through a little tube like you see on race cars. This enhances the loudness of the bass, also gives it less mid-bass bloom, more sub-bass extension, and a better overall sonic quality, making the bass sloppier, smoother, the impact of the bass tighter, it is much tighter, so the end sound is more pleasing. That is a technology we will only see with FiiO or companies who pay FiiO to use their technology, because it is patented by FiiO at this moment. So FH19, how does it sound like? Well, to start off we have 3 signatures, because there are 3 topper filters that you can place on the EMs. We are running the green filter right now, which is already plenty bassy, and if I recall correctly, there is a green, there is a red, and there is a black. I have tested the filters quite a bit, but I settled on the fact that the differences between them are minimal. There is no very high difference between them, so overall the sound of the FH19 is bassy. It is one of the widest sounding EMs, so it has a huge soundstage. It extends beautifully in the lateral plane, it is very deep, instrument separation is very good, and layering is also very good. We have three main layers. We have a forward layer which plays right into your face, that is the forward instrument and the lead voice typically. We have a middle ground layer where most of the music happens, and also a background layer for special effects, for cymbal crashes, air, and other effects. This kind of layering is super satisfying. It's not quite as you see on flagships that cost $2,000 and more, but it's excellent, absolutely excellent. It is really pleasing. The instrument separation is superb. I really like having so much separation between instruments, yet they are all part of the mix. And here is the thing, when you have so many drivers, the crossover becomes important. FiiO used a high-end crossover in the FH19, which provides you with a slightly different sound than with most multi-driver EMs. Here things will get a bit interesting because having this type of driver configuration and this crossover makes the FH19 very easy to drive. I am at 1 to 3 clicks on the iBasso D16 and the iBasso PB5 and I'm getting a super loud volume already. Also, FiiO FH19 has a medium passive noise isolation despite being semi-open, but they leak your music quite a bit into the outside world. All of those contribute to the final sound because when they are semi-open, you get this feeling that it is very open, but you also get the feeling that sounds can go out. The bass is very impactful when it hits. It hits super hard, then it creates an impact which is sloppy and very satisfying. Then the decay of the bass note is slow and long. It creates a supernatural type of sound, also very satisfying. It's oh, this is how it sounds like. The mid-range is natural, kinda lush, and kinda musical. It is not a taxing mid-range, it is what I would call forgiving, because it forgives bad mastering, bad mixes. It doesn't really show aliasing or clipping at all. So if your song has clipping, FH19 plays beautifully. If your song is from the 90s or 80s era when music was super bright and harsh, your FH19 will show it super pleasing and musical. The disadvantage of such a signature is that when you don't really show aliasing or errors or artifacts, it is not a good EM for music mixing and mastering. It is a listening EM, also especially good for gaming, because you can hear a lot of sounds coming through at once without them clipping together. This is a very satisfying effect where you don't hear clipping, you don't hear errors, you just hear music and it's always enjoyable. The treble is a relaxed, smooth, kind of full sounding treble, and the whole sound character is wet, which means that the sound is fluid, it is never dry or congested or too fast. The sound is just natural in speed. This creates one of the most musically pleasing tuning signatures that I've heard in this price range. And I've heard a lot of products in the price range, with a strong direct contender being Campfire Cascara. Cascara is much warmer, much fuller, and has a much stronger bass, although Cascara has a larger shell that needs to go deeper inside of your ear, which can create discomfort for some people. FH19 has a much shallower fitting, which is better for most ears. Of course, a good contender would be Spiritorino Twin Pulse Beryllium, but Twin Pulse Beryllium is 1,000 euros, which means about $1,100, so almost twice the price of FH19. So no direct comparison should be drawn between them. Twin Pulse Beryllium plays in a much higher price range, although FH19 does have a similar amount of soundstage and of sound. So FH19 really can push the boundaries when it comes to how wide and holographic the soundstage feels like. Twin Pulse Beryllium has a warmer mid bass, while FH19 has much more sub-bass extension and sub-bass punch. Most of the bass in FH19 happens in the sub-bass, not in the mid-bass. It is that type of signature that we consider high fidelity and audiophile. We consider this to be perfect because when you have a deep sub-bass, you are satisfied with your music. You will also notice that they click when I touch them. I hope it is audible. So they have this really specific click to them when you touch them. The EMs are not easily damaged, they don't scratch easily, they don't scratch at all, they are super nicely treated. I found one driver ventilation on the inside, of course there is the large ventilation on the outside, and overall FH19 is what I consider to be a perfect purchase. Of course, there are always better purchases if you have more money. That is natural. FiiO has some of the most interesting flagship DAPs that has to offer, but when it comes to EMs, if you need a deep and lush sounding EM, FH19 won't be easily beaten even if you spend twice the money. So if you are not ready to spend about $1,500 For $600 you can have FiiO FH19, which will offer that lush, deep and beautiful bassy sound that you will never ever want to let go. I hope you will subscribe to Audiophile Heaven. Also, please like this video, and if you are feeling generous, use the purchase links in the video description if you decide to purchase the FH19 so that we can keep our little studio running as we get a few dollars from each purchase you make. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that FiiO FH19 will bring you the best listening experience you have ever had. And we'll see each other really soon. Bye!